Hi everyone, and thank you for joining. In my last video, I was talking about where you see your children represented in your chart through the houses. Like the first child is represented by your fifth house, your second child by the seventh house, and so on. And so I'm really overwhelmed with your responses. Thank you so much for the likes, and thank you so much for the questions. They were really, really interesting. And that is what I dream of creating here, actually. It's a kind of community where we exchange ideas and knowledge and share in a safe environment where we're supportive and all that. But it was so great to see such engagement from your side. And thank you for those of you who actually booked me, and I got to know you and meet you in person. So I'm really, really grateful for that. Thank you so much. Some of you also said, can you say a little bit more about the nurturing aspect and how we nurture our children, which is very much related to how we were nurtured or what we felt missing in that nurturing growing up. So, of course, these little short videos can never replace a one-on-one in-depth reading, but this is more a general intro to it, which hopefully will pique your interest, so you look in your own chart for these significations. But again, bear in mind, it is, of course, going to be a more simplified and generic approach. But I still narrowed it down to three really important components for how we nurture our children based on our own chart. And so first and foremost, we look at the moon. We look at the moon by sign, by house, and certainly also by aspects. And this is very personal for us because the moon is representing our emotional inner life, our instinct, our care, and how we by natural instinct will react emotionally to certain situations. And that includes how we nurture ourselves, and so on. The second point that is very important to look at is actually where does the sign of Cancer fall in your natal chart? So Cancer, of course, represents in the natural horoscope, it represents the home, the family. It represents our roots, our heritage, and how we feel safe in our home environment with a family, and what are the values we grew up with. So if you look at where Cancer falls in your chart, in which house, and possibly also if there's any planets in there, that will also color something about how you nurture your children, and also say something about how you were nurtured when you were little. So even though we all love our children, but we don't nurture in the same way. And this is the little nuance that you can actually see in your own chart. And so there's, I want to come back to the moon. The moon in your own chart is your feeling emotional nature. And it would say something where the sign that the moon is placed in, and of course the house, but certainly also aspects would give more information about how you felt secure emotionally, if you felt that was met with in a way that suited your personality, in a way that felt secure with your emotions, and you felt that you were taken care of in a way that you needed in order to feel loved and appreciated as a child. And so these aspects can say a lot about whether there was an easy flow in this respect, or if there were more challenging ways for you. For example, if you have a hard aspect with Saturn, you might have grown up and felt that your parents were not available. And it doesn't need to always be negative. It can also be that, your parents were not available because they're working hard to support the family, for example. And you might have learned some really important role model skill set about if you want to achieve something in life, you have to work hard and so on. But it might also be a tender point for you where you feel, I'm going to be more available for my children. This was my moon story, and the moon story I'm going to carry on with my children. I'm going to be more nurturing. I'm going to be more present, even if I have to work hard. I'm going to evolve that part of me that felt there was not enough time and attention when I grew up. Equally, if you have more supportive aspects, this might have, very naturally made you feel that you were attended to and you were nurtured and loved the way that you needed, and it might feel very, very easy for you to pass that on to your children in your own nurturing way. Then when we come to, so it's very important to see your moon story is you, but it's also how we carry on those skill sets or those natural instincts that we have in the way we nurture our child. And it's simply it's very different because it has to come from us. It has to be something that's natural. But in order to get more information, you can also certainly look at where your Cancer sign falls in your chart. And that will say a lot about what is important in your nurturing ways, which is very Cancerian. It's like, how do we feel safe with our parents in our home environment? And just to give a few examples. So let's say you have the Cancer house falls in your second house. That means that the way of you nurturing, what is very instinctively important to you, is to help people or the children with their self-confidence, to validate them, to make them feel that what they contribute with and who they are is valuable, and you want to build their self-confidence. It's something that instantly think, okay, this is going to make it easier for them in life if they come out with some confidence in self. Let's say that Cancer falls in this natural house, which is the fourth house, and you feel naturally that the family traditions is going to anchor your child, and so you are really, really focused on creating family traditions and family outings and making sure that you gather family in the home so that your child gets to know its grandparents and uncles and aunts and nephews and so on. So your natural focus will be, this is important. This is not something I want to skip. Let's say your Cancer sign falls in the 10th house. Then perhaps your natural instinct would be more like, I'm going to support my child. I'm going to nurture my child's skills. Let's say your child is good at playing tennis, for example, and you will go to all the matches and you will support them, and you will pay for whatever they need. And then later on, maybe they're good at math or something, you would be very supportive because you were thinking life direction is something they're going to nurture and help my kid in the world. And I'm going to certainly be supportive of that. Equally, if you have the Cancer sign, let's say in 9th house, and you might feel, expanding my child's vision of the world and understanding there's many different ways of living and living ways and different countries, cultures, languages. I want to expose my child to the world. I want to take traveling as a really important component in, how I raise my child. And equally, I also want to introduce them to different religions. I want them to know that there are many ways of thinking about and the values I introduce to my child. I want them to be exposed to many different ways of living and believing and worshiping. So let's say you have the Cancer in the 5th house. So here your nurture style would be more playful and fun, and it would be, how can I maybe do sport with my kid? How can we play? How can we do, create theaters at home? How maybe learning instruments and introducing music. So this would instantly be a way of you nurturing a child that feels very, very natural for you. And maybe that's how you grew up and you were supported yourself. Or if you weren't, then it's all down to the awareness. So we can see the potential in the chart. It's reflected in the moon, in the Cancer sign, and the houses of these two, including, of course, aspects. And so perhaps things were not ideal when you grew up, but you have still learned from that, and we can create some awareness around it so that we are raising the bar for how we want to nurture and care for our children. So these are just some of the components. And again, the moon is a big, big area to look at, of course, because it will also say something about the conditioning when we grew up. Because when we're little, we don't have the consciousness and awareness to understand why certain things happen, and we make our own conclusions. And some of them we might attach a small disappointment to, okay, that's because we were not loved, or we were not valuable enough, or whatever it is. But that wounded part of us in the moon, it can certainly be seen in the chart. But it can also, I mean, sometimes we have to go through a lot of self-searching to find out where some of this wounding came from. And if it's not clear, it's worth becoming more clearer on it and work on healing ourselves. Sometimes our children come into our lives and they push the buttons. They go right where it hurts, not because they want to push our buttons. They're not aware we have these buttons, but they remind us because they're touching the moon. They're touching where we were nurtured, or where we weren't nurtured enough, where we didn't feel enough security from our parents, not because we were not loved, but because they were busy with their lives as well, and their buttons were also pushed by us. So what I see in this chart analysis can be actually really helpful if you have some relationship, something in the relationship with your child that triggers you. It can almost always be traced back to your moon sign, the house of your moon, and also the planets that are in aspect with your moon. And so sometimes, we have children and they help us actually heal things we were not aware of, or things we thought we had already healed. A child could come along and really make us, reveal these old issues. For example, that we could lack confidence in certain areas, and we realized because we were not brought up to have confidence in our own skills in that way, and we ourselves a bit lost. So that child can come in and make it or see it. It becomes a mirror for us, and we are then able to start the healing process for our own sake. So there's so much richness in looking at these aspects. And of course, each chart has its own story, unique story. This will always just be generic. But I hope it stimulates some interest for you to, as a continuation, go in and look at how are you nurturing your child, and why are you choosing those priorities that you are? And what is your moon and the moon sign house and the planets aspecting the moon? What are they saying about how you nurture and how you were nurtured yourself? And so if you want an personal in-depth reading to learn more about this topic, feel free to contact me on dancingastrologer.com. And let me know in the comments if you recognize your nurturing style with your child. And where is your moon? And do you see some of the parenting style reflected in how you do things and how you were brought up, how your parents were nurturing you when you were a child? Yeah, let me know in the comment. I'm really, really curious to hear how this has been for you. So thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.